All right, everybody. Due to popular demand, I am going to release a new video that shows how I set up my levels on NinjaTrader, where I'm comparing options to futures, and it kind of helps direct where I want to take my trades. So I'll start by kind of showing you the end, and then we can do the first section of how to actually build out the chart manually. And then in part 2, I'll talk about how to do some automation within Excel to create the text files that you need. And then part 3 will be sort of how to build out a really comprehensive spreadsheet that has multiple instruments and some nice, easy to read charts that kind of tell you what your what potentially could happen in the future. So I'll start by switching over here to NinjaTrader. So this is MNQ, so it's the micro NQ chart. And as you see, we've got these levels over here, 454, 455, all the way up. And those are options that people can go in and purchase or sell. I dabbled with options trading, didn't do very well with it. I know a lot of people that do quite well with it, and if it's something you want to learn, this would not be the video for you. But option levels are extremely important for futures. So futures are leveraged products that are based on price action. So if the price goes up, and you're in long, you make money. If the price goes down and you're in short, you will make money. And the opposite is also true. If the price goes up and you're short, you're going to lose money, and vice versa. Whereas with options, if the price goes up, it's not necessarily going to make your money, because there's the Greeks, and I don't want to dig too deep into that, but basically time is part of the equation, and there's tons of videos out there that go into that. So if you really want to understand options, I highly recommend it. It's a good thing to know for sure, is how options work, especially since we're going to relate them to futures. So anyways, I digress. Back to my chart. On the chart, you see some colored lines. There's green lines. Those are indicating that there's a higher volume of calls at those levels than there are of puts. And if you look above here, there's some red lines. The brighter the line, obviously, the more activity at that level. And the red lines are puts. So when you see red lines, that means people who are in those positions want to see the market go down, because their options will become worth more. And the green lines, they want the market to go up, because as the market goes up, their option positions become worth more. And usually, but not always, you get a decent number of puts above the current market position, and you'll get a decent number of calls below the market position, because nobody really knows where the market's going, and people think they know, and so that's why they pick positions. Or if they have deep pockets, they maybe can push the market in a direction, and that's really what we're looking at, is the institutional money, the guys who have deep pockets. They will use options in a number of different ways, but one of the ways is to I leverage a position, and then they can move the market either away from or towards that option position to help them, earn more money potentially in the options market than they can even on the actual market. And they have deep enough pockets that they're able to move a market. And the rest of us retail traders, we're just trying to go along for the ride, and that's really what we're trying to figure out, is where do these guys want to go. So on this chart up here, you see this PLV that turns the levels off, and it's a planned levels visualizer, and I'll get into where you can get that in a little bit. But if you turn it back on, the lines come back on the chart. And you have to do this periodically throughout the day as the chart updates. For whatever reason, it's not automated. The guy who created this he did it 9 years ago, and his website's no longer out there. I've tried to find him because I wanted to have him set it up to just auto update, and so far I haven't been able to do it. So I'm now diving into how to code Ninja coding, and it'll take a while, but I'm going to try and rebuild this so that it automatically refreshes as the levels change throughout the day. But again, this just kind of gives you a high overview of what we're trying to accomplish. As you can see, the levels are quite important. Market tends to get pretty close to the levels, and then it'll tend to stair step up. This morning was actually kind of a really big stair step. It went from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels. That's a huge move all in one day. And then it's sort of bounced back and forth between these two upper levels, and then came down and back up. But you can really start to see the patterns, how the market goes to these levels and then hangs out for a little bit, and then sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. But that's really what we're trying to figure out is where are these levels, and what direction do we think the market's going to go, up or down. So that's the levels. Now I will jump over to how do we actually get these levels. So there's a number of available options out there. The one I use is Thinkorswim. I have a Schwab account. I highly recommend Schwab and Thinkorswim, especially if you want to trade options and equities. It's a great platform. One of the best out there. It's free if you have an account, so doesn't cost you anything like most of these platforms do. And I find that Schwab's a big player, but they seem to be a pretty decent operator. So in Schwab, you can get the options level. So this is QQQ, which is kind of the largest index for options on the NASDAQ. And so you always want to play with the largest one because that's where most of the money sits. And there's some other big ones out there that you could do for sure, but I find that QQQ is pretty good. And you find that in the trade window, and then you can type in whatever. So if you wanted SPY, you would type SPY. And so that's the S&P 500. And so here's your SPY option levels. But for today, I'm going to do QQQ. So that's the one I'm on. You can open up future expirations. I'm not going to dive into what all that is, but basically there's an option, options expiring every single day on both the QQQ and SPY. So the day of, it tends to have the most volume, so that's the one we really want to look at. Number of strikes, 14 is the, you can do all, but that's, we don't care about strikes that are so far out of the money. So we'll really just look at the 14 strikes. And this is the information that we care about, is what is the strike price and how is that affecting, how many people are in an option position. So this data doesn't really do much for us because it's just, kind of mind numbing. But if you get delta, gamma, open interest, volume, and then the bid prices for both call options, which are on the right-hand side, and for put option, left-hand side, and for put options, which is over on the right-hand side, those allow us to create the calculation that we need to determine the levels that we care about. So to make this useful, we need to bring it into Excel. And this is why I really like Thinkorswim, is that you can go in here, click on this upper menu bar, and export to Microsoft Excel. So if we click to Microsoft Excel, comes up and tells us, so we can paste live data in my Microsoft Excel. So here I'll switch over to Excel, and I'll go up here, right click, and I'm just going to paste. Lo and behold, there is all of my option data. And this live updates as everything updates on the other chart. So there's some things you can do to set up, time and all of that kind of stuff. But for right now, we're just kind of looking at the chart, and then now we've got to do some calculations to figure out what we actually care about on this chart. So I'm going to dive into Delta just a little bit. So here, hang on one second. I don't know if that export. It's not quite what I am expecting here, but let's see. We'll delete all of that stuff. It should be auto updating, and for some reason it's not. Oh, well, I'm not going to get held up on that, but just when I bring my regular sheet over, you'll see it. It does. Oh, you know what? I know what it is. I had my macros on my other. Well, I'm not going to be able to fix it right this second, but I'll fix it here in a minute. So we'll talk about Delta. So Delta is the likelihood of the price actually holding. And so if it's a delta of 1, that means that you have a 100% chance right now that this is going to pay out. And so the open interest level, you can basically multiply that by 1, and you've got your open interest number. Tells you what, 7,896 calls are in the money and likely to pay out, is basically how it boils down. And then as you get closer to the market price, the delta gets smaller. So at the market price, it's about 0.5 or 50%. And so you can multiply the open interest at that level, and that tells you the likelihood of how, those things paying out, is kind of how I look at it. And then the further away from price you go the other direction out of the money, it drops down to basically 0. So any options or open interest at these further away prices are not likely to pay out at all. So that's kind of what we're trying to figure out is, yeah, there might be 200,000 open interest at a price, but that price is so far away from the current price that the value of that 200,000 isn't really that high. And so that's where we use Delta, is to sort of adjust the open interest so that we can get a number that makes the most sense. I am going to pause the video real quick and try and fix the spreadsheet, and then I'll come back and jump into making the formulas. All right, I am back. Hopefully I can splice that together, make it look good. But I did get my spreadsheet fixed, and unfortunately we are now past the window. So we're not going to get very many updates. Basically, trading is stopped for the day for options. So there may be a few updates along the way, but basically we're done for today for options. So you won't get to see this auto updating, but you can trust me that it does. For people who don't have Thinkorswim, I do believe that Webull has a similar function. I've never used it, but basically you need to get live options data into a spreadsheet so that we can work with it and kind of figure out what levels matter to us while we're trading. So this data, like I said, we need to adjust it. And I'm going to show you real quick what ultimately we're trying to accomplish. This is just a simple text file, and it has, the levels that we care about listed. And so you've got the low and the high, and You can do this as tight as you want. I did it like basically a half a point. And that's to make the lines a little bit thicker. If you want just super thin lines, you can just do, you know, right at 18,463 for this particular level. So you need to list the level or the range that you want to show. You want to put the color. So I do white for things that are levels but not very important, meaning they don't have a whole lot of action at them. And then you do the brightness. So typically for white, I do 50%. And then the label that you want to show up on that level. And so these are all the levels that are currently in this text sheet. And this sheet updates every 10 minutes from my spreadsheet. And we'll get into that in number 2, how to set up that auto generating feature. And then green obviously is for calls, and the most levels of calls that are adjusted for delta is at you know, right now 18,751, and I have it at green at 90%, so that's going to be the brightest green line. And then you can see there's a green at 30%, and there's probably a green, there's a green here at 50%. So that's how you set this up, so that the indicator in NinjaTrader knows how to take this data and plot it as lines on your chart. So it's pretty simple, and you know, realistically, you can even just type all this stuff in if you wanted to, but that's kind of a pain, because you know, every 10 minutes or whatever, actually every second there's new data coming. So if some big market mover comes in and you know, buys a whole bunch of calls at a certain level, you want to know that information sooner rather than later, because that's going to influence the direction the market goes. So how do we get that chart? So first off, we need to take the delta, whatever it is, and we need to multiply that by the current open interest. And because this is the number that we care about. So delta times open interest is going to give us the call volume at this strike price. So this strike price 452.50. So what I do is come over here and we'll do delta open interest is what we'll call it, DOI. And we're going to take, pretty simple, we're just going to say this equals the delta times the volume on the call side. So this is actually, we want to relabel this DOI calls. And then we want to do the same thing for puts. So DOI puts. And we're going to want to take the delta. So this is going to equal the delta on the put side times the open interest. Open interest. And puts are generally going to be a negative number, and calls are generally going to be a positive number, because you know, calls are longs and puts are shorts. So right now at this level, and this makes total sense because of where we are, the calls are in the money, and so there's a way more calls than there are puts, because you know, the puts just actually technically there's more puts than calls, but when you do the delta adjustment, there's way more calls than there are puts. And so if we take this and copy down, you'll see the levels and how much interest there is at each level. And so if we look at the volume, oh no, did I open interest or did I do volume? Hang on, I might have done that wrong. I did it wrong, sorry guys. I need to do this times E9, not, or FE10. Okay, that's better. That didn't look right. Okay, There we go. Okay, so here's your open interest. So what is open interest? Open interest, the best I can describe it, this is positions that people have taken that they have not closed out. So these are the levels that we really care about, is the open interest levels, because that's where people who are still in the market want to see the market go there. And so that's why these levels matter. And then I'm going to do devol for calls. And you're probably going to ask, well, what's devol? Well, it's basically the same thing, except we're going to look at volume. So volume is going to be delta times volume. And we can take that and drag it all the way down. And then we'll do devol for puts. And so devol for puts, we're going to take equals delta times volume. So what is volume? So volume is transactions that happened today. So we don't necessarily know if these were people buying or selling. You know, we don't really know what they were doing here. We just know that there was a transaction done, and that adds to the volume. The DOI, or open interest, that tells us that there's available, you know, there's people interested at these prices to close out positions. And so you can kind of use the two to sort of see when a move is coming, because you'll see a whole bunch of new volume come in, and that'll affect the open interest, which will kind of tell you, you know, were these closing out positions or were they opening new positions? And if they're opening new positions, then you can expect that the market should potentially move towards it if it's big numbers, because that means there's probably a market mover who's coming in to move the market and make a bunch of money. So that's when you want to jump on board and try and ride the wave if at all possible. So then let me insert a row here. And let's go to DOI average. So DOI average, basically you're just doing the sum of these two. Hang on, that ain't right. DOI. No. Oh, I gotta type some in there. That's why. Sorry. My Excel skills are weak. No. All right, there we go. So basically, it's just you kind of sum the two up, and that gives you an average, because one's positive, one's negative. It just balances the two out. And then we want to take that, drag it down, and now we've got the numbers all the way across for both open interest. And then we do the same thing. Basically, we can just copy this, paste it over here, and then rename this. So this is going to be devol average. And we don't care too much about the average, but when we get a little further along and I build the chart for you, then you'll understand why the average matters. But for right now, it's just a number that we are going to need in the future. But for argument's sake, we aren't too worried about it on this particular chart. One of the things I probably do is I was gonna do this, and for some, oh, there we are. Okay, reduce these down, and then probably center them just to make them a little easier to read. So now we've got calls and puts for open interest. So this is what we really want for setting our levels. So now we need to take this data and put it into something that we can actually use within our chart. So, sorry, my son is moving stuff out of the garage. So I'm going to pause and I'll come back in a few minutes once he's out making noise, not making noise in the background anymore. All right, I am back. Any of you have kids that are in sports? It's good times, but mine's trying to be a professional hockey player, so he's got to go put his time in on the ice. So sorry for the distraction, but we are back. So get back into this chart. So the next step is we need to rank the open interest from highest to lowest. So basically we are going to do a ranking, and for sake of simplicity I'm going to take the formula that I created originally. Oh, this might not work. Control C. I'm going to have to tweak it. That's fine. We'll put it here. Oh, no, escape. And we'll go over here and do Control V. And we have Y10, which is the open interest average. And we're going to do a COUNTIF, which is counting these. And so if you guys are interested, the formula is here. Let's see, I can probably zoom that in for you. So that is the formula that I'm using for ranking the levels. Now, how do I get this back? All right, so now we're back. So there's your formula, and hit enter. And then we're going to take this and we're going to stretch it all the way down to there. And now you see you have each of the levels is ranked, and you've got some negative rankings. But basically this tells us which, the ones are the highest levels. So those are the ones that are going to end up being, the 90%, and then the 2s will be 50%, and the 3s will be 30% for the color, and then everything else will end up being white. So the next row we need is color. Again, I'm going to go over to my other spreadsheet. And no, that's not what I want. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Okay, so this is a little bit longer of a formula, but pretty much you're just doing an if statement and you're comparing comparing the wrong one. Okay. If Z10, we don't want Z10. We want AC10. Sorry, my other chart was laid out a little differently, so I got to make some changes to this. So we'll do AC10, we'll do a copy, and we will paste. Then they'll fix it up for us. So basically we are just comparing the rankings over here, and if the level is above or below or at, then it gives you your colors. So there we go. we got white at 50, green at 30, white at 50. So that's just based on the ranking. And if it's in a negative, then it goes red instead of being green. So that gives us the next little piece of the chart that we need. And then the next really important thing is that we need to do a correlation of the level, the QQQ level versus the NQ level. So over here we'll type in QQQ and we'll type in NQ because those are the two levels that we care about. And then we will have the conversion factor. Okay, so the QQQ, we can get the current price from the chart we're currently on. QQQ, the last price is right here. So we want to say that this equals the last price right here. Okay, and then NQ is, and I'll just give this to you, but basically it is a formula that pulls the level from Thinkorswim. So we're using real-time data, and you can see it up here, TOS.RTD, and then the last, and the XCME, which is the index, or the house that has it. And then for conversion, basically you just take the NQ and divide it by the NQ divided by QQQ, and that's going to give you your conversion factor. So this is equal to NQ divided by QQQ, and there's your conversion factor, 41.2097. And of course that changes as the market changes, but this basically gives you, what do I have to do to QQQ to make it fit on an NQ chart. And let me scoot over a little bit here. And then, so this now is going to give us everything we need to create that text file that we started off looking at. So here, so AC10 is we take the levels, and we're going to put those here. So this is going to be equals, and we go over here to the level, the strike price, and hit enter. And then we're just going to copy that down. So that is your QQQ strike price. And then we want to convert that to a NQ strike price. So if we take this strike, multiply by the conversion factor, that's going to give us the NQ price that this level sits at. Hope that makes sense, but I'll do the formula right now. So this is equals this, the conversion factor, and you want to make this a constant. So when we copy it down, it will keep this, it'll reference this position, and we want to multiply that by the QQQ strike price and hit enter, and there is your price on NQ that relates to this strike price. So if we take this and copy it down, here's all of your strike prices that are related to the NQ price, just a conversion factor. And it's kind of the secret sauce to tell us where to put all the lines on the chart. So then what I do is create a range for these prices, and I'm going to copy this over just because it'll be easier. Oh, hang on. Control-E. Okay, so we'll have to fix this, but basically, I just got to reference the right cells. So basically, we want to take all of this information and put it on a single line, and then that's going to allow us to export that into that text file. And AC10, so we don't want ranking, so we need to change a couple things. So we want to round AD10, which is this price here, AG10, and we want to do that here, AG10. So what we're doing is rounding this number, and then we're adding a quarter point, or rounding it to a quarter point, and then we're adding a quarter point on one side and subtracting a quarter point. So we have a half a point range difference, and then this has to be the color white at 50%. And the last thing is the strike price. So that's this one here. Okay, so I will try and zoom in on that again for you guys so you can see the finished formula. Basically, you want to reference the right squares, and that'll get you in the right place here. Okay, so we're back. So we'll go up here and hit enter, and we'll make this the full width. So now you can see we rounded this to the nearest quarter point, and then we subtracted a quarter point from one side and added a quarter point, so we have a half a point difference between these two levels, and this is on NQ, and then we have the color at 50%, and we have the strike price that relates to this level. So now we just take this and copy it down. Starting to look familiar. We've got all of the information now that we need to make our text file, except for one thing. We need a date. So if we go back over here to the notepad, so we need 5/24/24. That's today's date. So that tells it which date to plot it on your chart. So if we scroll back over here, here's our date, 5/24. Which it pulled. Actually, we want to pull it from. Actually, let's do it a different way. We'll do it a simpler way. We'll do equals today, bracket, bracket, enter. There is your date, 5/24/24. So again, that's if you want to do it equals today, and then open bracket, closing bracket, and that'll give you today's date. So this is the information that we need in a text file. So I'm not going to show full automation in this video, but pretty much if you take this and copy it, and then you can paste it into any text file. So we'll bring up this, we'll do a new document, and we'll do Control V to paste it. It just pasted all of this information into this text file. Now we need to name it. So we do a file, and we want to do a save as. So I'm going to do QQQ test to name the levels and save it. And you need to know where you saved it, because we're going to go through the next section here is how do I get this on my chart now. So let me minimize that, and then I'm going to switch back to Ninja real quick. So on Ninja, you know what? I'm going to show you guys how to get this installed. So if we go to proptraders.com/planned levels visualizer, and I'm going to put this in my description below, but basically go into here, and this is where you can download this planned levels visualizer. So I don't remember if they require a subscription, but at any rate, you click the free download and it downloads it. And then once you have it downloaded, I'm going to bring my Ninja window over here. If you go to Tools, and we're going to import a Ninja script add-on. And I'll go through this. Mine's already installed, so it won't, I can't fully install it, but I can at least show you how to do it. Where is it coming up? It's still thinking. Okay, here we go. So it's probably in your downloads file, but basically you want to go into here and DT planned levels. If I select that, say open, I already have it in there, so I'm just going to cancel this, but basically you just have to go through. Now, if it has an existing file that's newer, I would keep the existing file. I would not replace it. This was written 9 years ago, so NinjaTrader's had several updates over the last 9 years. But at any rate, that's how you install it into NinjaTrader. Once it's in NinjaTrader, then you want to go onto your chart. So you just right click anywhere on the chart, go to indicators. You can also use the shortcuts up here, but I just use my mouse all the time. And then I have DT plan levels already here. You wouldn't, because you just installed it. So you just need to go find it on the list right here. And then if you double click, it moves it down to the level down here. And then you can click on it. And this is where you select the file that you just created. So we just created this QQQ test. So I'm going to select that one, say open. Now there's a few things you can change here, but basically you want to show labels, you want to print labels. You don't have to, but that's, I would recommend it, because that's how you get these things to show up. Default opacity doesn't really matter. Default color doesn't really matter. I do change the text color based on the instrument. So I use, a lawn green for NQ. I use gold for gold. So just, you can do whatever you want there. And then the label size, I find that the default is 10. I find that 15 is something that I can see even when I have my charts kind of scaled down. But you can make it as big as you want. The rest of this stuff doesn't really matter. You can just leave whatever the default is. And then we say apply. And we say OK, and you'll notice that the levels just changed based on that file that we just created. So I can turn them off, I can turn them back on, and these are the levels. So now if I go back into indicators, and on mine I don't usually do $half levels. So that's why if you look at my actual file, which is QQQ levels, open it, say apply, and OK. The 57.5 is gone. I don't know. I guess you could leave it in there. You could take it out. I don't know that it matters one way or the other. But again, that's how you get the levels and the colors and everything else, making the text file. And I know everybody is going to want to understand how to take this to the next level and automate more of the features. So that will be in part 2 of this video. I didn't want to make them too crazy long. It's a lot of kind of nonsense digging through, figuring out how to build a spreadsheet. But the most important part is you need a subscription. I like Schwab and use the TOS, but I do think that Webull has available levels that you can get, and I know you can get them off of like Yahoo Finance. I don't think you can get them live off of Yahoo Finance, so that's kind of a downside. But if you don't have access to anything else, there's a way to scrape them out of there and at least get levels so that you have them for the day. You won't be able to necessarily see them changing, which is kind of important, but at least you could have levels. Frankly, you can just type them in. You don't even really need to create the spreadsheet, but the spreadsheet makes it nice. And with what we just did on this spreadsheet, the next stages is going to allow you to automate that process so that it updates. We do have to write macros. There's some tricky stuff in there. And I've got my younger kid, he's 16, smarter than me. Hopefully smarter than me. Anyways, he is helping me code an actual indicator that for I don't even know. We're probably going to make it pretty inexpensive, just a nominal fee just to cover his time to manage it. But basically, you'll be able to just subscribe and get this information, add it to your charts without all the effort of building your spreadsheet. But I did find it was awesome to build the spreadsheet because I really got to understand a lot of this stuff more in depth than I would have if I hadn't have done the spreadsheet. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it. If I never thought I'd be a YouTube guy, but if you want to like or subscribe, I do. I don't think there's any money to be made in YouTube. Frankly, there's too many people out there already. But it's good to get your comments. And if you think I can do something better or spell something out a little bit clearer for you, that would be great. But again, I thank you for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful trading year this year. It's been good for me so far. So I look forward to talking to you all in the future.